Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Seasonal Tokens Podcast, where Polar interviews people so you can do more investing and less gambling.
All the things that we're saying right now are great, but there are always going to be naysayers. Those that believe that crypto will die very soon because people like Warren Buffett, for example, they don't like crypto, and we know that. There are some other big guys that also don't like crypto. So, Zach, when we have all these guys that have a very, very solid influence, what makes you think that the future of crypto is bright and it's going to be sustainable over time?
Well, just on the Warren Buffett thing, what I find interesting is, he said negative things about crypto, and his partner Charlie Munger has had even more negative things. But what's interesting is Berkshire Hathaway owns banks that allow crypto investing, and on the immersion technology, I know for a fact, because they're in negotiations with a company I'm working with, they want to provide the immersion fluid, right? So even though they're saying they're not in crypto, from an ancillary standpoint, they are involved in the industry. But what I see is, in terms of the long-term longevity, at least specifically with Bitcoin, it's been around for 13 years. It's been around longer than any other crypto. It was the first. And the adoption of it has just been trending up tremendously, right? And I think, JP Morgan Chase recently said there's a $600 billion demand, and they see no sign of that abating. And it's just increasing. Like as we talked about, BlackRock and Fidelity are now opening it up. And so that's using Bitcoin as a store of value, but we're also starting to see it be adopted as a means of transaction for buying goods and services with the Lightning Network, right? This layer 2 network where you can essentially for free transfer Bitcoin to other people to, transfer funds, which I think is going to totally disrupt the wire transfer and Western Union business, because they charge exorbitant fees to transfer funds. And it's also going to really disrupt the credit card industry as a means for paying for goods and services, because, these merchants have to give up 1 to 2.5% of the transaction fee to the credit card companies. And from a consumer standpoint, I don't know how it is out there where you are, but every few months there's fraud on one of my credit cards, and I have to go through this process of contacting the credit card company, looking for other fraudulent charges, canceling my credit card. If I have automatic payment on that card, updating the automatic payment with the other vendors. It's a huge hassle. And so with the Lightning Network, it solves all of those problems. There's no fraud. It's instantaneous. There's virtually no transaction fee. So the Lightning Network is still kind of in its infancy, but it's being adopted at a very aggressive rate. It's something like 43% a year it's growing.
Wow.
So I think that's the means of using it as a means of paying for goods and services. So I think that, coupled with the huge already adoption of it as a store of value, really means it's not going to go away. It's just going to continue to grow in its adoption and usage.
Isn't this somehow affecting the core idea of Bitcoin of being store of value?
It is a store of value, and it's been a store of value, and that's been primarily how people have been buying it, like digital gold, basically, right? But in terms of using it as a means of digital currency, that hasn't really been adopted. They're trying to do that. It's starting to be used. Deloitte this year did a survey of US merchants, and 85% of them said, we're interested in having Bitcoin as a means of paying for our goods and services. But that's still kind of in its infancy, and it's growing very aggressively, like almost 50% a year. The rate at which the Lightning Network is taking on new transactions is growing, but compared to Bitcoin being acquired as a store of value, it's still a much smaller market, but it will grow. And I think that's what will cause the price of Bitcoin to continue to accelerate.
Yeah, no doubts about it, but here is something provocative for you as a Bitcoin believer. Like we know the gold standard, it's the biggest store of value right now, right? But almost no one is using gold for paying, right?
Yeah, you can't because it's not convenient, right? Nobody wants to lug around gold bars, right?
Exactly.
But that's not an issue with Bitcoin, right? I mean, you can have a moon wallet on your phone and just, okay, there's your money.
Yeah. I'm just saying that, because gold can be used like that for payments, like you said, it's not very convenient. That's why, people still believe that it's a very great store of value. When we use Bitcoin for payments, isn't this somehow killing its other part of being a store of value? This is my question.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think if you look historically, gold, was one of the first forms of paying for goods and services, right? And and ultimately, what led to fiat currency was central banks deciding, okay, well, we need to hold the gold and we'll issue paper. So your paper verifies the amount of gold that you have stored with us. And then they decided, well, since we can do that, let's just print more paper, right? And that's what led to fiat currency. But you don't have that problem with Bitcoin. There's only going to be 21 Bitcoin ever produced. It's written in there. Just as your seasonal tokens, it's written in how much and when it's going to be issued. So you don't have that problem with Bitcoin, and you don't have the problem of the difficulties of being able to transport gold, right? Or having to store it somewhere securely, right? It's digital, so it's very easy to store it. It's very easy to transfer it. It's very easy to carry it to another location.
Absolutely, I agree. So Zach just said that Bitcoin is better than gold. So if you have any problems with that, call Zach. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. Absolutely. In the beginning, gold was one of the main instruments when people have been trading. I suppose it has been more like in coins, converting gold in coins, not just like these bars that we can buy. But
Right.
it's still it has been used for that. But after that, some great people have figured out that gold is limited, but printing is not limited. So we can print and we can be wealthy, but not everyone, just a specific amount of people, right? So that's why let's print and forget about the gold. So, and I'm really happy that the Bitcoin is trying to change this, and the whole cryptocurrency, of course, not only Bitcoin. Because the other thing with the printer, at least for me, maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound very fair to me. I'm more like...
Yeah, it's not fair. I mean, to me, it's a very insidious hidden tax, right? Because when you're printing, as we're seeing right now, ultimately what that does is it drives up the cost for goods and services. And so that's a hidden tax, right? So here in the US, they've said, oh, well, inflation is 9.1%, which is really a jerry-rigged number. It's probably, depending on what you're buying, it's probably more like 15%. So that's essentially a 15% tax. Your money is now worth 15% less than it was a year ago. So
yeah, absolutely. So you're working, and while you're working, you're losing money. You're not making money, right? So
yeah, even if you get a raise, like if you get a 6% raise, you're still losing money if inflation was 15%. If the price of things you're paying for it went up 15%,
yeah,
you're still losing money.
absolutely. So I think that there will be some people that believe a lot in governments, and that they are doing their best to help people, but I'm not sure that I agree with that. But everyone has their freedom to think what they want. I think that crypto has shown us many times that this is far from the truth. And I think that we can probably talk about it hours. And I'm sure that you can also bring up a lot of facts about that, but this is not the goal of the podcast. And I think that we have been talking a lot about cryptocurrencies, investing, and things like that. And probably it's time for some final words. Zach, what are your final words for our listeners?
Well, thanks. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. And if anybody's interested in learning more about us and my company, you can come to our website. That's CINVCRE.com, or I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Zach, for being on the podcast. It's a big pleasure for me, and I hope that in the future we'll be able to make another episode together.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Happy to come back anytime, Polar. Good seeing you.
Amazing. Yeah, and just to mention that all the links that you just said or other links, we are going to put them on the show notes. So people, don't worry. You don't have to re-listen the part of Zach saying his website. You are going to see it in the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much for all that have been listening to us so far. I think this is one of the long episodes that I have done so far. I hope that you have enjoyed it as much as I do. So thank you very much again for being our listeners. And I'm Paul, the CMO of Seasonal Tokens, and I'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye.